Good evening, my dear colleagues. Welcome to another INGED talk. Today, our guest is Associate Professor Dr. Ceylan Yangın Ersanlı from 19 Mayıs University. Ceylan Hocam has done her PhD at Gazi University. That's how I know her. And she was a very good, great student there. And now I bet she's a wonderful instructor, associate professor at the university. Her interest areas are, well, she has a wide range of interest areas, content-based instruction, content and language integrated learning, teaching English to young learners, curriculum development, and teacher training. The title of her talk this evening is CLIL, Time to Stop Talking About Teaching About Language. Thank you, dear Ceylan Hocam, for being with us this evening, for accepting to have hold this session, and welcome again. The screen is all yours.
Thank you, Aydan Hocam. First of all, before making my presentation, I would like to thank you, Aydan Hocam, for inviting me. And also, I would like to thank all the participants here for joining us in this session, especially at this Friday evening. I'd like to say welcome to all of them. As you have just said, this evening we are going to discuss CLIL, and I will try to give teachers some ideas about how to design a CLIL lesson. But before doing this, I think it would be wise to first introduce the term CLIL and in a very brief way, and then discuss how it emerged first in our field. Okay. And here, the theory and the methodological concerns of CLIL arose almost 50 years ago from bilingual immersion education programs in French-speaking Canada. But the term CLIL, I mean Content and Language Integrated Learning, was first coined by Marsh in 1994. CLIL Marsh defines it as a dual-focused educational approach in which an additional language is used for the learning and teaching of both content and language. Another definition of CLIL defines it as a dual-focused learning and teaching approach in which a non-language subject is taught through a foreign language, with the dual focus being on acquiring subject knowledge and competence, as well as skills and competencies in the foreign language. It is viewed as an umbrella term. I mean, it is an umbrella term for educational practices in which a target language is used to teach a non-language content. We can consider CLIL just like a continuum. On one end of this continuum, there is content-driven CLIL practices, where on the other end of this continuum, there is language-driven CLIL practices. The content-driven CLIL practices involve bilingual education, as we have just said, immersion education, and higher levels of competence in the areas of foreign language, mathematics, science, geography are aimed. Whereas in language-driven CLIL practices, cross-cultural understanding, general purpose abilities, as well as the acquisition of the target language are aimed. In a way, we can say that CLIL is assumed as an alternative to communicative language teaching, or let me say, as a way of extending it. Extending it. It is therefore referred to also as a meaning-focused or content-enriched method to improve foreign language education. And let's have a look at the how we can design a CLIL lesson plan. we know that in order to offer adequate education and training to CLIL teacher, we have to first, it is necessary to specify the practical competencies required to integrate language and content in a single lesson. CLIL teachers, because since the CLIL classrooms has dual focus, they have more, let's say, the teachers, CLIL teachers have more responsibilities. And they require to have more competencies. What should they do? First, they have to specify content related outcomes and language related outcomes. And also they have to also determine the syllabus. Syllabus is what? Syllabus is the orderly presentation of the content. So which content should be presented should be determined. And also, CLIL teachers should know some methodological issues like multiple focus, learner autonomy, scaffolding. I mean, what we mean by scaffolding in CLIL classrooms is that, for example, giving some cognitive and interactive support for language difficulties to our students. And also cooperation, higher order thinking skills, learner motivation and meaningful learning, all these elements are required while we are defining our methodology, determining our methodology. Because methodology is what the teachers do in the classroom to maximize learning and teaching opportunities. So we have to pay all these things, pay attention to all these elements while we are designing a CLIL lesson. Okay, this is a figure, it is referred to as the 4 C's framework of CLIL. In a description of a CLIL lesson plan, we should not skip that 4 C's framework of CLIL. The elements of this framework are content, cognition, communication, and culture. Content, let me first briefly explain what they all mean. Content refers to the subject matter to be taught in the CLIL classroom, the themes, the subject matter, the non-language content, or the cross-curricular contents. These are what content refers to. Cognition is I'm engaging the learners through higher order thinking skills or knowledge processing. It is related to knowledge processes, cognition. Communication is using the target language to mediate ideas, thoughts, and everything. And culture, the final element, is, I mean, we know that the students in a classroom may have different L1 backgrounds. They may bring to the classroom different learning, different experiences. Also, they have their unique cultural identities. They have their own beliefs, norms, values, and everything. Culture refers to all of them. So these are the 4 C's elements of CLIL. And while we are designing a CLIL course, we have to pay attention to those elements also. Okay, of course, we have to talk a little bit about CLIL materials because the CLIL materials should not just aim to teach the target language, but they should also dual aims. They have dual aims. They should ensure opportunities both language learning for both language learning and content learning. Morton in 2013 outlines a number of candid statements for CLIL materials. Let's have a look at, in a very brief way, what he suggests. CLIL materials can avoid underestimating learners linguistically and cognitively. What is meant here is that, for example, our students may be linguistically at low levels, but this doesn't mean that they are cognitively low-level learners. This is one of the things. The other one is that the materials should include listening and reading activities that are not just used to teach language features, but are content meaning focused also. And the materials can engage students effectively and intellectually with stimulating reading and listening text relating to aspects of content. And the materials can involve learners in activities in which they cognitively engage with the content, thus enabling them to use the full resources of the brain. Here at this point, I have prepared a sample CLIL lesson plan for young learners. This lesson plan is a science lesson, and the topic is water cycle. Throughout this, in this presentation, I have actually prepared two lesson plans. One is for young learners, the other is for more elder students, I mean adolescents at the age of 14 and 15. This is the first one, and it is a science lesson plan. But the materials needed for this lesson plan are water cycle spinner, color pencils, scissors, and markers. The number of the learners are 15. They are fourth graders at the age of 9 or 10. And the interaction is teacher to student and student to student. Pair and group work activities are involved. The language level is A2. And as I have said before repeatedly, in a CLIL class lesson, we have dual aims, language teaching and content teaching. Therefore, we have both content learning outcomes and language learning outcomes in this class, in this specific lesson. Let's have a look at the content learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, students will identify and explain the stages of the water cycle. The students will understand water cycle processes such as evaporation, condensation, and precipitation, and etc. And the language outcomes are listening, speaking, and developing their listening and speaking skills, and also vocabulary repertoire. And the thinking skills are understanding water cycle in nature, observing, reporting, and sequencing. The social skills are cooperating. What about the then warm-up activity? The teacher asks what comes to their minds when they think of water cycle. She draws a mind map on the board and asks what they already know about the water cycle in nature to tap their background information. She elicits answers, accepts all answers from the students, and writes the elicited keywords on the mind map. They have the background information that the sun heats the Earth's surface water and it rises up into air, and etc. Here's the water cycle, a picture depicting the water cycle process. She points to the picture and points to the illustrations in the picture, such as the sun, the clouds, water, precipitation, condensation, etc. The teacher introduces key vocabulary items for the incoming video. After teaching the key vocabulary items, the teacher makes them watch the water cycle video. Let me show it to you in a very brief way. Can you hear the video, by the way?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I think this gives you an idea about the video. And she asked the teacher, questions about gist on the first listening. Have they ever wondered where the rain comes from or how the clouds are formed? The teacher asked students to check their predictions on second listening. And then teacher checks their answers with the whole class. As a follow-up activity, the teacher asks students to form small groups of 3 or 4. She distributes 2 water cycle wheels and asks them to color both wheels and cut them out. Then students cut along the dashed lines to create 4 windows on the top wheel. They place the top wheel on top of the bottom wheel, push a metal fastener through the center of both wheels and secure on the back. They turn the wheel to see the water cycle in action. The students practice telling the water cycle processes in pairs. The end product is would be just like this one, as you see. So they can see using that, let's say, product of them, they would see all the processes of the water cycle themselves. And as a homework, the teacher has students split into different groups to perform a simple water cycle experiment. In each group, there are soil, sand, different landforms made out of clay, and water in basin. The top of the basin is covered in plastic wrap, and they are going to place them on the window sill for about 2 to 3 days. The teacher wants them to observe what may happen and write their observations in the class science journal. This is an alternative homework, and another one may be this. The teacher has students split into different groups to prepare a poster supported by visuals. She asked them to research the importance of water in different geographies. For example, the shortage of clean water in African continent, the necessity of water for the continuation of the ecosystem in rainforests, and etc. Finally, the teacher asks each group to present their posters to the class. As you see, so far, we discussed what? We discussed CLIL and how CLIL can be used in the topics from non-language topics in CLIL classes may be chosen from other disciplines, such as geography, science, and mathematics even, and so on. But we can say that CLIL courses may not be just limited to those, let's say, topics. We may go a few steps further than this. Let me give you first, try to explain CLIL in more depth. Marsh says that CLIL is an approach in which a foreign language is used as a tool in the learning of a non-language subject, in which both language and the subject have a joint role. However, again, generally, CLIL subjects are chosen among science, history, or geography disciplines. However, other subjects can be studied also. For example, sustainable development goals. Let me first explain you what we mean by sustainable development. It is defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity by 2030. 17 goals are defined to achieve development that should be balanced, social, economic, and environmental sustainability. British Council have announced, identified, 6 themes for sustainable development goals, but these themes are later broken into different coherent topics, and a total of 17 themes emerged in sustainable development goals, from no poverty to reduce inequalities, to zero hunger, to quality education, life on the earth, gender equality. All these topics are involved in sustainable development goals. And here at this part of the, let's say, presentation, I have prepared a sample CLIL lesson plan for Sustainable Development Goal 3. It is good health and well-being. It focuses on ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for everyone of all ages. We have, the overall aim of this lesson is threefold. First, in this lesson, we aim to empower students with the tools so that they are able to identify and choose healthy eating habits. The second, aim is creating awareness of the need for daily exercise. to ensure good health, good health and well-being. And thirdly, addressing the topic of body image and raise consciousness about self-acceptance in students. These are our overall 3 aims in this lesson. Then let's have a look at that lesson plan in more depth. The topic is good health and well-being. Materials needed are worksheets, magazines, and the internet access. And the number of learners are identified as 15. They are 9th graders, and they are at the age of 14 or 15. And the interaction is teacher to student and student to student. And the language level may be A2 or B1 level. Okay, let's have a look at the learning outcomes. Okay, at the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify food groups and healthy eating habits. Secondly, they are expected to have an awareness of the need for daily exercise. And third, the activities address the topic of body image and aim to raise consciousness about self-acceptance in students. I think at that age, at the age of 14 or 15, this is especially important for them. I mean, raising a consciousness about self-acceptance. The activity is related to, address the topic of body image in the students. These are our content-related outcomes. But what about language-related outcomes? At the end of the lesson, students will become acquainted with vocabulary related to food groups, activity, health, and adjectives to describe oneself. They will also enhance reading and speaking skills and promote use of technology and group work as part of students' autonomy, learner autonomy. And the thinking skills are analyzing, researching, and creative thinking. And the social skills are cooperating. Okay, let's start with the warm-up. The teacher introduces the topic by asking her students what types of snacks they eat. She writes them on the board in 2 columns, like healthy and unhealthy. They classify the words accordingly. Then the teacher introduces the topic of healthy eating by writing on the board the different food groups, like fruits, vegetables, grains, protein foods, dairy, oils. And she asks students if they can name 1 food item for each category. Students can then come up to the board and write it under the right category. These are all, let's say, considered as a warm-up activity and to introduce some key vocabulary items. Later, an activity to develop speaking skill. The language focus is this activity introduces and reviews vocabulary related to food, and the content focus is promoting healthy eating habits. Again, the thinking skills that are fostered are making a research, analyzing and grouping. The social skills are cooperating and making a presentation. Let's have a look at the procedure. The teacher puts the students into groups and gets each group to research one of the food groups that they have learned in the warm-up activity. She tells them to try to find out which foods are the healthiest ones. Once they have done their research, she asks them to create a presentation about their food group to share what they have learned. The next activity fosters reading and writing skills. And I named this activity as traffic lights. The teacher introduces students as many different foods as possible and places them into 3 categories according to how healthy they are for our bodies. The language focus of this activity is it reviews vocabulary related to food, and its content focus is promoting healthy eating habits. The thinking skills that are aimed to be developed are analyzing and creative thinking by having the students arrange the food into healthy and not so healthy choices. Here is the traffic lights worksheet. In the green column, they are healthy and you should eat them, it is written. So they are going to write the healthy food items that they should eat. the ones that they should eat. In the yellow one, it is written you should eat these in moderation. So they should choose which food items they can put into this category. And in the red one, it is written try to avoid as much as possible. So they should try to find out which food items they should try to as much as possible in order to be more healthy. Here is the food list that they are given, and they should choose the food items from this list and write in that sheet, the traffic lights sheet. And the next preceding activity is a speaking and writing activity. It is named as how active are you? The teacher starts the activity by asking students if they practice any kind of physical activity and writes them on the board, if they have any. The teacher hands out the quiz to each student. She checks their understanding of the vocabulary and gives 8 to 10 minutes for students to read and answer each question. When time is up, students are to count their points and see how active they are. The teacher can ask students randomly to share their answers. Here is the quiz that evaluates how active they are, that tests how active they are. Here are the questions. And here is the, grading criteria. The results, how they can calculate their scores, and whether they can decide on whether they are physically active enough or not. And as a follow-up activity, it is named as I see myself. The teacher writes on the board the words, my body, I am unique, and asks the students if they know the meaning of the words. She tells them that they will be talking about the way they look, their appearance. She gives each student a large piece of blank paper and asks the students to create a collage of him or herself in any way they wish. In the middle of the paper, they can use pieces cut from the magazines to make the collage. She asks them to write on the right side 5 things they like about their body and looks, and on the left side, 1 thing they do not like. The teacher puts them in groups of 5 and asks them to show their collage to each other and explain why they like each part they wrote down. Like, I like my hair because it is just like my mother's hair. She gives a couple of minutes to each student to share their collage with the rest of the group members, and the teacher monitors and helps students with vocabulary if she feels a need for it. And as a final, step in the final step in this lesson is giving a homework. This is an healthy eating quiz, and the students may be given such a quiz, and also they may be given such, criteria to count their points, to calculate and count their points, and to decide whether they have a healthy eating attitude or not. They may decide by the, score that they receive from this quiz. Thank you. Now, these are my, presentation. Do you have any questions?
You covered it in a very short time. Thank you. While we are waiting for the others to come up with their questions, I have one for you.
Please.
You know that I am a huge fan of CLIL, and whenever I present CLIL, I usually encounter the question, how is it different from topic-based or theme-based teaching?
Okay, I can explain it if you wish in more depth.
In your opinion.
Okay, I think them not distinct, totally distinct, instruction type. but they are, in my opinion, just like overlapping circles. Both of them, first of all, is an umbrella term.
Mm-hmm.
For example, content-based instruction involves many models beneath it, like team-based model, which focuses on the language teaching, and sheltered model, in which a content, let's say, teacher tries to teach a content like geography, mathematics, or science in the target language, or an adjunct model in which cross-curricular coordination is required, and English language teachers work in coordination with a content teaching throughout the term. But what can I say about CLIL is that CLIL is a type of maybe content-based instruction in a more typically European research context.
Mm-hmm.
CBI, content-based instruction, emerged in America, whereas CLIL emerged in
Europe.
studied in Europe.
Yes.
And also CLIL is also an umbrella term.
Mm-hmm.
As I have said in my presentation, okay, we can think CLIL just like a continuum. On one end of this continuum, there is bilingual education and immersion education, which focuses on, the content, non-language content teaching, prioritize it in a way. You know about what we mean by immersion education is also not, there are different, let's say, types of immersion: total immersion, partial immersion, or two-way immersion programs. But they prioritize what? They prioritize content teaching over language teaching.
Yes.
But later, in time, differences between, those immersion programs and CLIL practices emerged in time. First of all, today in CLIL classrooms, the teachers, first of all, should not be necessarily native speakers. And also, a specific attention given to language teaching. I have said, if you remember, that we talked about scaffolding. Trying to give some cognitive and linguistic support for language learners, for language difficulties that the students may face. But in immersion programs, they totally focus on content teaching that just use the language, target language as a medium of instruction. But I have read, Aydan Hocam, some articles which say that although the students in those immersion programs, they developed their, fluency skills. They can speak in a very fluent way. And although they can their comprehension increased to great extent, there are some accuracy problems in their language use. Like, for example, fossilization. Why? This reason is that they ignore language teaching. They focus too much, content.
There should be a very fine balance.
Should be a balance. Today, what we suggest our English language teachers is not to ignore language teaching, okay, in order to avoid such fossilization. But we have to, let's say, try to teach language, but we shouldn't just aim to teach. This is why I have chosen the title of my presentation, Time to Stop Teaching About Language. What I say here is that traditional foreign language classrooms focus on form and structure of the target language too much, and they form and structures are the main objective of the study. But in CLIL classrooms, the mastery of content, non-language content, and also the acquisition of an additional language is prioritized, both of them.
Yes.
This is the, strength of CLIL. Therefore, but unfortunately, most of our English teachers are unaware of CLIL in Turkey. They don't know. And therefore, I try to, let's say, pay specific attention to CLIL.
Well, unfortunately, most of the teachers in Turkey are unaware of the fact that the curriculum changed years ago, and the curriculum has implemented common European framework of reference for languages like about 20 years ago, but they still have their wonderful grammatical objectives, you know. Heather, among the audience, asks a question here. Is the main language focus in CLIL vocabulary? How is it different from ESP?
Okay. We cannot say that vocabulary, I mean, developing the lexical repertoire of our students is one of the objectives, of course, but we cannot claim that it is the only objective. We aim to develop all language skills in a CLIL class in an integrated way.
Yes.
And ESP is what? ESP is English for specific purposes.
Yes.
It is maybe related, but we cannot claim that CLIL is totally an ESP course. ESP is, for example, academic writing, learning English to write academically.
Well, ESP works if you have a group of students who have the same field. But in our situation, we have students who have general language learning goals.
Yes.
So it's a bit different from ESP in our situation, where we teach English for general purposes, because our students are not doctors, not dentists, not bankers, I don't know. But Sedat Hocam has a similar question. When you deal with a topic, isn't it natural to bring in all the related vocabulary items to that topic, right? If there's content, for example, water evaporation, you talked about how water recycles. Evaporation, for example,
of course, we have to teach
is a vocabulary item that belongs to that specific content.
Yeah, of course, in a CLIL lesson, we have to teach language, that topic-related vocabulary. And this is the way we should start a class first. We have to first try to teach them, or first we have to understand what they already have in their minds related to that topic. And then we have to teach them some topic-related concepts and terminology. This is what we should do. But everything should be related to that topic. I mean, we should have content teaching. For example, let's remember the second lesson plan for adolescents, for let's say being healthy, and I mean, it is related to well-being. And if you remember, we have three important, let's say, aims in that class, in that lesson. What are those? First of all, we have to teach them some topic-related, I mean, food items, healthy ones and unhealthy ones, different food groups. This is, of course, one of our aims, but our aims are not just limited to this. We also try to, in that course, try to create an awareness of having the importance of having an active life to be healthy. And also we try to give them an awareness about their physical appearance. So we cannot ignore this.
Of course. And as far as I know, the present, the curriculum that we have right now covers all these, what did you call them? Sustainable
development goals. It is
sustainable
one of the
development goals. I think they do have it like implemented into the curriculum. If you check it, my dear colleagues, you can see them there. Well, not all of them, of course.
Not all of them, but we can find some activities related to some of those topics. But we advise. I mean, in fact, not we, but all these topics are advised to be, let's say, included
Uh-huh.
into the, let's say, educational curricula.
Yes. Sedat Hocam says, learning language through other disciplines probably would require vocabulary overload accordingly. Any suggestions to sort it out? So this is somehow related to what we have already talked about, vocabulary teaching. But do you have a suggestion to avoid overloading?
vocabulary.
Yes.
Maybe there is a, in lexical approach, there is Wilkins has a very famous saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he says that without grammar, very little can be conveyed, but without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed. Therefore, I believe the importance of teaching vocabulary. And if you have enough vocabulary repertoire, lexical repertoire, not just vocabulary, collocations and everything, okay, I believe that you can get your messages across. Therefore, I really believe in the importance of teaching them, but of course, we shouldn't overload our students.
Of course.
Therefore, we have to teach them some key vocabulary items, as I have always said. We have to say, because, we in a classroom, the classroom time is limited. So the number of the vocabulary items, new vocabulary items that we can teach should also be limited.
Would you suggest using corpus studies to decide which vocabulary items to choose depending on their frequency, how common they are, that kind of. How about that? Can we suggest that?
Yes, we can suggest, but it would be wise to use corpus data to determine which vocabulary items we should taught. In corpus analysis, the most frequent words, we can determine which words are more frequently used, but frequency is not just the only criteria.
Yes, of course.
Word may be frequent enough, but it doesn't have a wide distribution. So we should pay attention to the frequency, distribution, range of the word, and many other different, let's say, criteria.
And age appropriateness.
And also the age of the learners, as you have just said. Okay, in a young learner classroom, the items, the vocabulary items will be definitely different than in a, let's say, adult in a classroom which is full of adult learners.
Yes. By the way, my dear colleagues, if you're interested on our channel, we have I can't remember how many Zoom sessions on corpus studies, corpus data, and how teachers can use those studies. So please watch them and try to use corpus studies, please, when you're deciding on what to teach in the classroom. Bilin Hocam says, can this approach be applied with very young learners?
I think in very young learners, it would be more appropriate to have a topic-based lesson, closely related to CLIL, a model of content-based instruction, but topic-based would be more appropriate. I mean, a theme-based, topic-based one.
Because I would suggest storytelling.
Storytelling.
Stories are wonderful contents.
Yes, definitely.
And young learners love stories. And within a story, there's always a wonderful context.
For example, that water cycle process may easily be given to a very young learner class by using a story, a children's story.
Maybe a small water drop called
the life of a water drop. Life of a water drop. Why not?
Why not?
A good drama activity.
Yeah. And of course, you don't need to say evaporate,
No.
No, you can use, Droppy is going away. Bye-bye, Droppy, you know. Droppy is flying to the air. Why not?
Okay. Why not? A good, let's say, drama activity. Of course, let's relate this with the previous question, to the previous question, how we can choose the vocabulary items. It also depends on the age of your group of learners, as you have just said.
By the way,
We're
Gonca
teaching a
Hocam,
very young learner classroom.
yeah,
Of course, we cannot try to teach those terms.
Of
your
course.
profession.
yes,
Okay, but
they are really very hard for them to grasp. By the way, Gonca Hocam, do not please steal my ideas. I have just said a small water drop called Droppy. And now you're writing that in chat. Shame on you, Gonca Hocam. Shame on you.
Simultaneously hocam.
Well, great minds think alike, they say. Sedat Hocam has another question. Oh, of course, we don't mind questions.
of course.
What does a teacher assess in CLIL?
Of course, since the class has dual aims, I think we should assess both content learning and language achievement. This is one of the things that I forgot to mention in my presentation. Therefore, thank you, Sedat Hocam, for asking me this. In my opinion, we should not just focus on language achievement. I mean, try to assess how well they acquired the language, or this would be wrong, I think. Since it has dual aims, content teaching, we should also involve some, let's say, questions related to content, how well they have understood that content or not. We should try to assess both of them.
Yeah. And Sedat Hocam, most probably you have noticed that Ceylan Hocam has mentioned the objectives of the lesson that she has prepared as examples for us. Whenever you want to test something, you need to test in line with your objectives, whether your objectives have been achieved or not. So if, for example, Ceylan Hocam said listening comprehension, so you need to assess listening. Okay, so whatever is mentioned in the objective has to be assessed. I shouldn't say test, but assessed. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yes, of course. I mean, before we start to develop a lesson plan, first we identify what are objectives, what we aim to teach.
Yes.
And we define our learning outcomes, what the students are expected to do at the end of that lesson, are expected to learn at the end of this lesson.
Yes.
Which skills they are expected to acquire, and so on. So we know that learning and assessment are hand in hand. Therefore, if we aim to teach these, I mean, if we have dual aims, as I've also always said, okay, we shouldn't ignore content, non-language content in the assessment part.
Of course.
Of course, we should try to assess it as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess like any other classroom setting, we need to have a balance because I'm totally against the idea of testing memory.
Yeah.
So if you do something in the classroom and then go back in an exam and ask, what happened to James? You're not testing content or language, you're testing memory.
Yeah.
And people like me may have some memory problems. So whatever you do, please try to assess the objectives that you have and try to avoid testing, using questions for memory. Emin Hocam says, I always teach past tense together with some history topics such as Atatürk's life and his principles. I utilize task-based learning in my CLIL classes, and it totally works. Emin Hocam, that's a wonderful point. However, saying I teach past tense is dead. I'm sorry. So from now on, not from now on, but we have been saying teaching how to talk about past events. I think it's high time we stopped using jargon, grammatical jargon, and Ceylan Hocam, Gonca Hoca is again stealing my ideas.
I don't know, Hocam. I am following.
See, you're a
I
witness
see.
now. You're a witness.
Copying you.
Please, I know it is hard. I know it is really difficult to leave the past habits behind and move on, but it's high time we started using functions, not grammatical jargon. That's why Ceylan Hocam has titled the session as
that's why I named
stop
it
teaching about language,
but
teaching language itself. Yes. So at least try, okay? I know it's going to take time, but please, we need to start. We need to start doing it. I cannot see any other questions in the chat box. And I think Ceylan Hocam is really tired now.
No, I don't feel tired.
But thank you very much for leaving this time for Q&A, because sometimes we do not have enough time to ask all the questions in the chat box. In this session, I'm really thankful to you because you did give us that chance.
I don't know, Hocam. I thought that they can find many things related to CLIL on the internet. There are many researches, articles, and everything, and we can have access to those sources easily. So what I wish to do here in this presentation is to just give some brief theoretical knowledge about CLIL, and then show two different lesson plans for different age groups. And then how to show them that we shouldn't just think CLIL as a method or instruction just to teach the disciplines, contents from other disciplines, but also we can, why not incorporate sustainable development goals into the CLIL classrooms?
Of course.
And show them how we can develop a lesson plan fostering those sustainable development goals, and spend some time on the discussion parts also.
Yes. Well, gender sensitive lessons. Go on, Hocam. You're really funny.
Gender equal.
Okay, we'll get to that hopefully one day. I don't know whether I'll see it or not, but one day I'm hopeful. Ceylan Hocam, thank you very much for this very informative and marvelous presentation. You're one of those people who walks the walk and talks the talk.
Thank you.
You said, stop teaching about language, start teaching language, and in your presentation, you didn't bombard us with lots of theory, lots of definitions, whatever. You just gave us a brief, summary of the whole thing, and then gave us examples, which is inspiring. As teachers, you can design your lessons. So thank you very much. So I'm going to close the session because there are no other questions. I'm still waiting. No. Well, Ceylan Hocam, thank you very much.
Ceylan Hocam and everybody, thank you again for listening to me and participating. And I don't know,
With
Hocam, for
pleasure.
inviting me again.
With
Thank you.
pleasure, with pleasure. My dear colleagues, thank you very much for being with us. And I hope to see you next week with another wonderful guest speaker. Take very good care of yourselves. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Good night.